Now, this was going to be a joint presentation with Sebastian from Orange, Poland. Unfortunately, and it wasn't a visa issue, it was just a passport expiration issue. So I'll just hand over to you, Doug.
Thank you. Yeah, and you just talked about my very first slide. Unfortunately, Sebastian apologized he could not make it here today. So hopefully I'll represent him in this talk. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that I just followed you guys on nicely, dovetailing in what I want to talk about concerning our two key things, the chasm in the business community and what Mac was saying about what you have to have as far as that service provider pull or what you see on the supply and demand side. You need to have the demand in the business community to actually want this stuff that we're actually producing. So today I'll be talking about the Business Intelligence Challenge, and this is somewhat of a historical approach to what we've seen in this community or what we've done. My one and only Oracle sales pitch. We have some success in this space, and very good success. We've done very well by it. And again, to get off that sales pitch and move right on to what I really want to talk about, but as you all know, and the reason why we're here, we're facing that chasm that Alan just talked about. This chasm is pretty interesting because I think as engineers, which a lot of us came from that engineering background, we know technically we can handle it or we can fix whatever that gap is in that chasm. It now becomes a real business issue. And how do we make that, how do we cross this chasm on the business side? So I'll talk a lot on the technical side, hit some on the business. I heard some good things coming out of here. But I also want to say I'm not going to present to you today a silver bullet. I don't think there is one silver bullet. I think there are many. I'm presenting you one of many types of approaches we can take to tackle this beast on delivering services or compelling services out to the industry. But if you're not familiar with this curve, this comes from Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm, which looks at any disruptive technology has a curve of innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and the laggards. And usually at the top of this curve is where we make our money, or that most money will be made. But Jeffrey Moore postulates that at the beginning of any disruptive technology, you have this chasm. And the problem with that chasm is usually you fall into it, and you hopefully will get out of it so you can come up and actually make good technology and move forward. I think where we are in this space, especially around what we're dealing with TAD, things like WebRTC and OTT, we are either solidly in that chasm or climbing out of it. I see a lot of positive signs saying that we're moving out of that chasm, moving forward. The way I like to kind of break this down, divide and conquer, one of my heroes, Dijkstra, said, separation of concerns, even if it's not perfectly possible, is yet the only available technique for effectively ordering one's thoughts. Pretty obvious quote, but when we talk about separation of concerns, what does that mean to us in this business? Well, the separation of our concerns are APIs, because what we have on the one side is an interface to something on the other side. We may have a network on the left, and we may have some IP or IT stuff on the right. Now, I just did that because I know it's late in the afternoon, and some of you are falling asleep, and I'm hopefully keeping you awake. But my favorite thing is chocolate, and I'm pretty fond of peanut butter. You combine them, you have one of my favorite candies or treats, and you have the producer in between, which is Hershey's, that puts this great combination together. What I like about the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, if you notice, if you break it in half, there is a clean separation between the chocolate and the peanut butter. If they just mixed it together, it would be kind of a chocolate mess, but that separation generates a huge consumer base of kids and people who like that. Well, I equate that to what we're looking for in this room are those neat, great, bright ideas that basically have the same kind of concept. You have the network on one side, you have IT and IT stuff on the other side, you have service providers on the top side, you have consumers on the bottom. And what we want with that consumer, we're looking at either an enterprise or a subscriber or someone who can consume those services on the bottom. But you have, well, networks and on the IT, IP space, if you can bring that together with your service providers on top, that's what we're talking about. Hopefully come up with a compelling, interesting service. I guess the interesting part about this discussion, what I find interesting, and especially the speakers before me, a lot of the communication service providers, especially in the US, companies like Verizon, AT&T, they went out and they created a whole bunch of ideas. that basically didn't sell. They have the CS1, CS2 capability sets of, I think there were like 100. One time I talked to it was Bell Atlantic at the time, which is now Verizon. They had 168 services. How many were really selling? Only 2. So this model's kind of been there before. The problem that was lacking was the consumer on the bottom, how you do that draw through and how you have that demand or how you create that demand, which we are now seeing on the internet. But I digress. Let me continue with this conversation. And I look on the network side and the IT side. Here are your standards bodies that are kind of pulling or at work. On your network side, you have GSMA, 3GPP, OMA, ADIS, and on your IT side, you have SIP4, IETF, Java W3C. And that's only kind of exacerbating this great divide that we heard. I'm quoting Alan there, talking about the great divide, where on the codecs, you have different codecs for network, different codecs for WebRTC or for VoIP. Go right down the signaling protocol on the WebRTC side, it's not defined. On the VoIP side, you have SIP H323. Signaling transports, you have WebSockets versus TCP, media. On each side, you have the concerns of either the network or the concerns of IT. And they all kind of come down at least to the IP spaces where you have that common ground. So here I see this great divide or this vertical thing to be very much a technical problem, or as I say, that separation of concerns here helps us if we have APIs. Now, do I want my IT guys to know everything about the network? Probably not. Do I want my network guys to know everything about IT? Probably not. I work with a lot of teams that put together prototypes and demonstrations. And I find that my network guys are terrible at doing web pages. And my web page guys are terrible at doing network. Yet you combine them together and you get some good chocolate and peanut butter. You actually get some good results. You almost have to keep that separation of concerns. And the problem is when we start trying to move things from the network to the IT space, I get my IT guys confused, or IT over to the network. They get confused as well. So where are we today as far as this early adopter, or some of these problems that we're dealing with or we're looking at, both from an Orange point of view or from an Oracle point of view? And I think you may see the same thing is there's some just basic security issues, whether I'm talking about APIs or whether I'm talking about WebRTC. There's network, they already have a security issue. Beat, how do I take that to the web space, and how do I extend that into WebRTC? Reliability, how do I get that same level of 5 nines I see on the network side and bring that to the IT space? And you have different levels of reliability you have on the IT space that you don't have on the network space. I can allow my browser to freeze. I'll just reboot the browser, but if that happens on a phone call, after about the 3rd time, I'll find a new provider. You know, it's annoying. So you have different kind of tolerances on the reliability side. On the interoperability side, this list almost goes endless as far as either bringing those worlds together. And this is where I think on interoperability, we are bringing that big divide together, either on transcoding, on browsers, on networks, on voice, on media, on a whole bunch of different issues. On the northbound, southbound side of my diagram, the top side to the bottom side, this I see as more of the business problem. So we talked about the technical problem. Here's where we have the business aspect, where you see what I call the providers up top and the service consumers on the bottom. If you notice, I've put all the telcos up in the left-hand corner, all the communications providers over here. But there are other providers out there, and I just arbitrarily grabbed something off the web that happened to have a whole bunch of banks in it. The banks could be a provider. Or you have any number of providers up there. And you have consumers of those services on the bottom. I have Lego over here, or Mercedes-Benz, McDonald's. But the event, what you want to see in this whole paradigm is that supply-demand, where you could be a Mercedes-Benz dealer that then needs to write a service that can extract out a credit report from a bank, find out that they can borrow money, and then set this up through a WebRTC session, all seamlessly, and have an application developer write that either for Mercedes-Benz or for the bank or for AT&T, and have those lines be drawn this way. So this is where I see the business relationship of the supply and demand and what you need to have done there. What I heard Max say is you need more of this pull down at the bottom, more of the interesting applications. I even heard this in several of our meetings. Hey, we can design anything we want from the network side. I need to have the guys at the bottom who write those interesting applications to add my communication services to that web page. So this is where we see the bright ideas coming from. And how I want to conclude here, some of our lessons learned and what we've done here, either around TAD hacks, and right now I'm involved also with Be Happy, which is a hackathon being run through Orange. Be Happy is an acronym for Business Intelligence Hackathon API. I wish I thought of it. Actually, the guys in Orange thought of it. The interesting thing about the Be Happy hackathon is we did one 2 years ago, and we had some great results. In fact, I'll show them in a minute. But Sebastian said to me, this is wonderful. We have some good results from all the university students, from all your garage developers, from your ponytail developers. He said, wonderful, let's keep them. Can we get something from the business community? Can we get that stuff at the bottom drawing down and pulling through? Can we get small business, medium business, integrators, just to come up with some good basic enterprise-based applications that can use our communication space, that can use my network, and combine that? So that's where the B comes from, and the Be Happy. Let's look at the business community and go out and make money on this. So the first thing that we're offering up here in this environment, this is true of a hackathon, this is true of any developer community, this is true of any place in the business community, is to provide a safe, secure, low-risk environment to rapidly grow these ideas. If it's not safe or secure, in other words, if it's dangerous, if someone could run away with my ideas, or someone could spoof me, spam me, or cause any kind of heartburn while I'm doing it, those ideas won't be created. This one, I think, is somewhat obvious, but then we move to then provide a rich set of providers and content here. So I just, again, took a snapshot of a lot of the providers that are out there. We're on the list, but even my competitors are here, but have that providers that can provide that content or expose that content out, and with a rich set or as many APIs as possible. What I like about this is a snapshot from the TAD hack side. This is what we're doing on the Be Happy side. What's interesting here is it's very hard to find those telecommunications interfaces there. Actually, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there are about 10, but he has about 70 there, from renting bicycles to reserving a court to metro lines to everything else, and coming up with all these rich possibilities and bringing that into an environment where a developer can develop that application. And then pull those best resources from the small or medium business. Now, what we did in the previous hackathon, we had a three-phase approach where we put it out there on the web. 73 ideas came back, 56 ideas were accepted, 2 awards were given out, different approaches given out by TAD hacks. Final thing, and this is one thing I like Alan does very well, is publish those results. You see all these video cameras back here and this guy taking pictures here. He's a master at this. Let's get this stuff out there. Let's make sure people see what's going on. Let's open up that marketplace and get people interested and engaged. At the TAD hack, these were, again, a snapshot of the results. I went through and kind of tabulated where the interesting things were done, either on the business or processes. There are 5 awards given. Social networks, there are 5 networks. And communications, 5 there. You see there's an equal footing or equal sharing across the board in these other business communities. I think you know these details as far as the number of hacks and number of developers. In fact, a lot of the people are in the room from that. But you get some cool apps, and some cool things are generated. These are some of the things that were generated from the Be Happy hackathon, where the number 2 most hacks that were produced were around business and tourism, and you can see the services that were there. What's interesting here, the one that won was a M2M, what they call Smart City, Green Your Office, and this was just a app that allowed from your iPhone or from your Android, you can basically turn lights off and on your house. It's just a remote control. That's what it came down to. Big deal. What was interesting, why they won the award here, was the business case that the one developer had. He had the whole entire business, how to build this thing, how to roll it out. It became more of a business problem and less of a technical problem. Yeah, sure, they showed it worked, but the fact that they could then monetize on it, take out the business, which really drew the attention of the judges on the panel here. They said this was very interesting. There's other very cool things here as far as what they can deliver out. Renting bikes, city bikes, finding parking spaces, protect your kids, medical services. All great ideas. When it came down to it, the things that really bubbled to the top were those business ideas and solutions. So in summary, build a safe, secure, low-risk environment, whether you're a service provider or whether you're a developer or a developer house, with rich content, either from telcos or from banks or from the healthcare industry, with as many of the APIs as possible. Pool those talents, publish those results. Who knows, you might get a nice treat at the end. So thank you.
Any questions for Doug? So don't be shy. I know everybody's like, maybe we... Well, first of all, thank you for all the plugging for TAD Hack. I'm just interested.
June 1st and 2nd?
We're not confirmed on the dates.
I'm asked also where it's going to be. A lot of people are asking.
It's global.
Well, no, I know it's global.
Yeah.
What are the global sites then?
Well, you've got the PDF. One of my emails that most probably is in your spam box.
I'm advertising him. I'll also advertise the Be Happy. If you're interested, I do have cards here. This is the Orange Hackathon that's going on as well. You feel free to register.
Absolutely. I'm just interested, because you're involved in both, just interested in if you could compare and contrast. I mean, you did a little bit, just interested to get a little bit more, because I think that we do need to look at many different types of ways of getting the message out there to as broad a community as possible. Or could you just talk in there so they can...
I'm enjoying doing both, and I think anything is good for the community going forward, and I guess I sometimes get annoyed at some of the carriers that have such closed sandboxes, but still anything is good for the community. Comparing and contrasting, TADHack was just a ton of fun because it's rich and organic and thrown together, and beer and pizza is the order of the day, as well as you get this thing done in 48 hours. The other interesting, that we were thrown into the room, you make it happen, you do it, and lots of prizes given out, and there's a rich environment that comes with that, and it fosters a rich environment. What I found interesting being on the judging panel was how many we had, 70 hacks?
Yeah.
And only really about 10 were created on site. 60 were brought in, or 60 were thought of well ahead of time, polished up, and shown. Now, credit to those 10 on site, I think all 10 won. Anyone who did anything on site, we all went, wow, you did that in 48 hours? That's pretty cool. But the fact of the matter, some of this stuff was actually out there for a long time. Compare that to the Orange Hackathon, where it's extremely conservative, very methodical. It's not 48 hours. No, it's 3 months. You have to sign up. You have to put your idea down. That goes before a judging panel. The judging panel either accepts your idea or rejects your idea. They accept your idea. They give you a SIM card. They give you a phone number. Now you have 5-6 weeks to develop your app into their network. And then they have another judging panel at the end that judges that, and then they publish the results. And different prizes, you gave out $1,000 a piece. And the chances of winning was 1 in 3. Not bad.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Here, there's only about 5 or 6 prizes. But you might get hired into Orange. That's not a bad deal. Or sent to Java 1, or,
exactly.
But so you had different kind of prizes are going. I know we're both looking towards how we can turn this thing into making money and going down the business path. I enjoy both because they're both the extreme, one end to the other. Just so much fun and craziness, and then you get here is very conservative, very methodical, and I don't want to say well thought out because yours was all well thought out, but it's just a lot of fun just to get together and just hammer this thing out in 2 days. Yeah. Looking forward to June again.
Oh yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doug.